real conversation, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. So welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Nathan Romas, and today we are continuing with our episodes in the series on service as we come up to Remembrance Day. And just for a bit of background, these are a number of podcasts with current police or law enforcement partners who've served in the military. The focus is on what service means and why it's important. But we're also going to talk about their experiences in things like training and deployments, their memories, the people that they have dealt with, and some of the impacts of service. So today we have Andrew Jarvis in studio, and he's a current member with the Edmonton Police Service. And Andrew was born in Whitehaven, England. Everywhere over there has such a cool name. But he moved to Canada at age 7. He's lived in several provinces before he moved back to the UK at 26 years old. He joined the Royal Marines at 27 years. And while in the British military, he served with several units, including 42 Commando, 30 Commando, and served in places kind of stretching from Ireland to Iraq. And he left the Marines in 2004, then completed some private security work in the Middle East, before eventually ending up back here in Edmonton with the police. So, and fair warning, you might think the next voice on here is going to be the voice of God, because this guy's got one of the deepest voices. So should be doing movie trailers. But welcome, Andrew.
Well, thanks very much.
So maybe we'll start a little bit at the beginning, get some of your background, but tell us, about growing up, and eventually we'll get to what drove you into military service.
Okay. Growing up, I grew up first in the UK and Northern England. Was there, like it says in the bio, till I was 7. Moved kind of against my will. My parents moved, and I didn't have any choice to move with them. Then I grew up in various bits of Canada. Ended up going back to Scotland to visit, I think in 1982, because we moved here in 80. A couple of years later, and it's when the Falklands was on, then that's kind of what first got me interested as a young kid in the British services and the Royal Marines Commandos in particular. That went on a back burner, and I ended up going through high school in a place called Fort St. John, BC. Got a trade, was an oil field mechanic for a couple of years. Then I just got sick of that and went on a 3-week holiday to Scotland and joined the Marines over there. Scared the shit out of my mother.
Well, that's one of the things I want to get into is, so you moved to Canada at age 7. So I'm guessing the accent, that must be developed at an early age, because you were here for the next essentially 20 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, my accent's a really mixed bag, and my brother had a Canadian accent about 3 seconds after getting off the plane, and I held on to mine for dear life because I thought for sure I was going back.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually I did, and then went into the British Forces, where especially the Royal Marines particularly, because they're drawn from all over the UK, not just one part, you start to speak to be understood, so everybody starts to sound alike a little bit.
So you're here, what kind of makes you think like that's what I want to get into? Because you said you went on a vacation, but imagine, is there anything that kind of precipitated that, like made you think, hey, I want to get into military?
It was not exactly spur of the moment. I quit my job in the oil field under fairly, in a poor light. I was pissed off, so I needed a bit of a holiday. I took one. While I was over there, I walked past a couple of recruiting offices and thought, I'm getting a bit, I was 27 at the time. I thought, I'm getting a little bit old. If I don't do this now, I'm not going to get to do it. So I walked into one of them and ended up taking the physical test and the written test and all that stuff, and ended up making it in.
So was that always something that was kind of on the back, in the back of your mind, like I want to serve in this capacity, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It definitely was. And my age was a factor as well, because when I got into the recruiting office, I was lucky I went into a naval recruiting office because the Army at that point in time wouldn't take anybody past the age of 26. I was already past that.
Oh, really?
And the Marines would only take you to 27. So I was like right there. So if I'd waited any longer, I would have been out of luck.
So what do you think? Why'd you wait until that period?
Because I grew up in Canada and it didn't seem realistic, really. And I was kind of money obsessed a little bit when I was younger and grew up in an oil field town. So I did what everybody else did and went into the oil field. But
Well, and you can make six figures and be, 18, 19, 20 working in the oil field. And then maybe I want to say you get stuck there. Like you're like, how do I go to anything else? And I'm not going to make this kind of money. So,
I mean, it's crazy thinking about it. I was making more then than I do now. And that was in the late 90s. It's actually crazy the money that
Really?
people were making up there. Yeah.
So you're over here in Canada, and did you have any interaction with anyone from the military or any, I don't know, we'll say like, did you see them anywhere? Is anything that kind of made you think like, well, I'd even consider the Canadian military?
The reason I actually went the British route was because at some point in the back of my head, I wanted to move back to the UK to at least see what it was like as an adult. The other part of that was Canada hadn't deployed anywhere at that point near the end of the 90s in a really long time, with a couple of exceptions, obviously. But, like for the most part, the Marines have been overseas every year since the formation of the commandos in 1941. They've been overseas in some capacity. One of the commando units has been overseas every year, except I think it was 1965. They called it the year the Corps rested. So yeah, there was lots of action. If you wanted an overseas tour, you could get one.
Would you be able to provide any kind of insight as to why are the Brits so involved in a lot of things or continuously, whereas Canada, we just kind of seem to be on an island here in North America, and we are much more picky and choosy whether we get into something.
I think the Brits have always been quite belligerent on the world scale. Like, like invading countries has been a thing. But I think a lot of it too is that they had, at the time when I was in it, I think they had the second highest military budget after the States. Like they were spending more than Russia was.
Really?
Or maybe that was per capita anyway. I remember they're up there anyway. And I think that's a lot of it. And you just hear a lot more about the military in the UK than you do here. It's kind of it's in the papers all the time. It's, there's always some deployment going on. So it's in the public consciousness a lot more than it is in Canada.
Yeah. Do you find maybe, I don't know when the last time you were over there was, but do you find there's a big difference between, we'll say, the younger generation in the two countries and whether they think about service or not? Like, is that a thing that's kind of more in the minds of younger Brits?
Yeah and no. I think Britain, like Canada, is going away from service being seen as cool as it was years ago. I think there seems to be, in both countries, there seems to be a kind of a push to get away from it and to not be seen as warlike. And it's not a popular opinion among the young.
Yeah.
And like I said, the UK is exactly like Canada in that regard.
Yeah, I wonder, what's really changed, and I imagine it would be a lot of factors, but what's kind of led people away from that lifestyle or seeing themselves as being in that?
I think there's media is a lot of it. Everything is reported now. So, I mean, what might have been, glorified or just left to the imagination before is now, you hear about stuff the moment it happens. And from the slant of a journalist. So, I mean, it depends. What young people get is what they're fed.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what your media is feeding you as to whether how you form an opinion on a lot of things.
Well, I guess, guys come back from the world wars, Vietnam or Korea, and the media is not what it is today. A lot of things, like you're saying, are left to imagination, but maybe, you hear the glory stories more And then the ones where, people are, it's all about blood and guts. You can't really envision that in your head until you see it. Well, there's nothing to bring back, but just what people are saying. So maybe they weren't telling those stories in the day as much, and it's more about the glory, right? So people are celebrating more than they are talking about things like PTSD or shell shock or whatever else there might be. So, yeah. So when you go back over to Britain, you said you were just happened to be walking by like a recruiting place, and then that kind of made you just walk in.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been thinking about it for like the first week of being there, and then was just kind of working up the courage to go and see one, and then I did.
Yeah.
Essentially, I went to a different town that had a naval recruiting office, and went for a walk up the high street, and as I got to it, I made the decision to walk into it, and then the rest is history, as they say.
What did you have any family that served, or any history of it?
That's a strange one. My grandmother was in the Women's Royal Air Force. She was a WAFU, as a cook.
It's called a WAFU?
WAFU, Women's Royal Air Force.
Okay.
And they have WRENS as well, which is Women's Royal Naval Service. It used to differentiate back in the day. It's gone.
Okay.
That stuff no longer exists. But yeah, she served in the Second World War. And then my mum's brother was a short-term Royal Navy sailor. Like, he did a couple of years and then got out, which was at the time an option. You could do a short-term engagement just to see what it was like, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
I wouldn't think of like doing military or even policing as like hey, come do a trial run.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully you don't get killed.
The Navy, at least over there, is a little bit interesting. You go into the Navy as a non-officer, like another rank, they call it. And it's generally trades-based. Everything on a ship, you have to have a trade to be on a ship. You have to be a stoker, you have to be a signaler, or any number of other things. These short engagement guys were just basically the dog's bodies that didn't gain a skill while they were in there. They just went in, got to bang around the ship, clean the decks, and travel, and get kicked out after 2 years.
Well, so when you go in and you kind of sign up, did you end up telling your family about this, or did you tell them beforehand?
I told my mother after the fact by phone. I mean, she was in Canada, I was in the UK. I told my Scottish extended family, immediately after the fact as well. But
what's kind of the reaction?
A little bit of shock, a little bit of not shock, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know you.
I've been trying to kill myself for years. So, and I don't mean in the suicide manner. I mean just by misadventure.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, like, what was your personality kind of growing up? Are you more of an outdoors person? Something that people might see as tending to lead to military service or those type of employment?
I was pretty shy as a kid. I did like the outdoors, and I kind of went through high school in Fort St. John, BC, which has a really beautiful backcountry close to it. So I did spend a lot of time outdoors up there. I wouldn't say I was highly skilled in anything. Like, I wasn't a hunter or anything like that. But yeah, I went banging around and hiking in the backcountry a little bit.
So what, when you get there and you go through the recruiting station, can you kind of walk us through what does that look like, and what year would this be in then?
That would have been in the very beginning of 2000.
Okay.
But so quite a long time ago.
Yeah. So Y2K hadn't happened.
I think
the world didn't crash.
Actually. Yeah,
but the world didn't crash.
We were all just lucky to be alive at that point. Apparently.
Yeah. So you're in there. What does recruiting kind of look like?
Well, at first you go in there, then they tried to steer everybody into the Navy stream, because they're predominantly a Navy recruiting office. The Marines just is a subset of the Navy, basically, in the UK. And you're told, when I expressed interest in the Marines, they kind of tell you, it's a lot harder. You should think about just doing the Navy, and some of the people I was in the classroom writing this, it was like a multiple choice test and short answer thing. some of them didn't look like they were really suitable to be out of their mom's basement, and some of them were like incredibly young looking, like to the point where I would have thought their mother should have been with them. But all things being relative, I was pretty old at the time for just starting in something like that.
Yeah.
I did get told at the end of it that I'd scored the highest of anybody there in the test. So that was, good and kind of encouraging for them, because they kind of, maybe you are a candidate for something. So then they pushed my application forward, and I got a date to go and do the potential Royal Marines course. It's a 3-day session, and I don't want to. Well, I mean, the closest comparison I could give is something like the tactical runoff. You go there for 3 days. They kick the shit out of you for 3 days, and because you're living on board a naval base or a Marines base, they can do things like not let you sleep for the 2 nights in between. So you get screwed around a lot, and it's basically just to see how you're going to cope with 8 months of training.
Yeah.
It's just to weed out the weak so that they're not wasting their time on, and we probably lost 50% of the people through the potential Royal Marines course, the PRMC.
Well, you were saying, so this is considered like not the most basic infantry soldier type of thing. It's like a step above.
It's a step above, yeah. They'd be called, I guess you'd be called elite infantry.
Okay. Is it special forces type stuff that you'd be getting into?
It's not really. It's the commandos are strange because the training is arguably harder than a lot of other countries' SF training. And the U.S. Rangers, the Army Rangers, their training is based off British commando training. So very similar sort of tests and whatnot that the Rangers would have to do, yet they would be considered a special force and we're not.
So if you get into the Royal Marines, you're a commando.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the position is. Or
they used to differentiate. You used to have non-commando Marines, and when they were first formed in World War II, they were split in half as well. There was the Royal Marines Light Infantry, who eventually all became commando trained. And then there was the Royal Marines Artillery, RMA, who were the guys that ran the guns on a ship, essentially. But they gave that up, and then they, over the course of time, they got rid of the non-commando trained Marines. And at the time when the commandos were formed in 1941, there was Army commandos and there was Marines commandos. But by the end of the war, the Army dropped it altogether. They had the SAS, so they dropped the commando role altogether, except in support of Marines. We had God's truth, it's been a while, sorry. They had 2 Royal Artillery regiments that were commando-trained Army attached to us, and 1 engineer regiment that was commando-trained Army attached to us. And then anybody that worked with us regularly out of the Navy could become a Navy commando.
Oh, okay.
But they had to do something called the All-Arms Commando Course, which is to say they finished their regular training as a Navy person or an Army person, and then they would take a 10-week short version of the commando courses, culminating in the 4 commando tests to see that they were physically able to serve beside us.
Yeah. Well, do you think when you first went through all these tests and were getting in, what was your mindset kind of like? Like, are you thinking, I'm ready if they want to make me eat bugs and sleep in the bush for, weeks on end and stuff? Like, is that something where your headspace was at? I
gotta tell you, every week that I stayed there, I was quietly surprised, because you're expecting to get binned all the time. Like they kicked guys off that course for sneezing wrong. Like it was fairly bad, and the physical training was very hard on me. I'm pretty large for a Royal Marine. They tend to be in the small, skinny, and fast side of things, and I'm definitely none of those things. So I struggled a little bit with the running at the beginning, and you start to accumulate injury over weeks and weeks of running with packs on your backs and big boots and all of that sort of thing. And it starts, your body starts to protest a little bit.
So you go in, you do all these tests. You say you scored at the top
Of the initial multiple
class.
guest test. Yeah, that was just to get in the door. But,
so they got this test and you did really well on it, but then they're like, well, you're at the top of the age range. What do they do with you after that? So,
well, literally then it's just that you do that, then they do a medical just to make sure you're not going to, keel over dead with a heart attack on the 30 miler, which has actually happened. So yeah, they want to make sure you are like medically capable of doing it as well. Then you do like the 3-day potential Royal Marines course, which, they do things like the beep test and stuff like that. And then they do, how many pull-ups can you do and how long can you stay in a plank and, and then just a lot of beasting and a lot of running and and then just some punishment for punishment's sake.
I find it interesting. You're basically a guy just off the street. You walk in and they're like, okay, we're just going to brutalize you for 3 days.
Yeah. Well, it's a while actually between when you go in. It's probably a 6 month process between going into the recruiting office, doing the test, and you getting a medical. And I had to get like a national insurance number, so I had to get like the ability to work in the UK and stuff like this. So you get all that admin stuff, and that probably took 4 to 6 months to get sorted before we did the PRMC. And then it's once you've passed the PRMC, if you pass it, then you have to wait for there to be a spot on a recruit in a recruit troop.
Oh, okay. So so you do that whole process, and then now you're coming up to, you get told hey, here's your date. You're going to go to training, like your actual training, your basic training, I guess.
Yeah.
So when does that kind of happen? And then what does that look like?
Well, it's 8 months long. So it's 32 weeks, I want to say it is. And it starts off not really light, but you start off just running and doing kind of, circuits and stuff like this for physical fitness. And you start, progressively learn more about weapon systems and how to survive in the bush and, and how to administer yourself is one of the biggest, hardest things to learn is how to keep your kit clean and dry, especially in bits of the UK where it pisses rain constantly. Makes for good soldiers because there's no worse environment than being wet and just slightly above zero. Mm-hmm. At least when stuff freezes, your clothing isn't wet and you don't have to do something called what we used to call wet and dry routine, which is you operate in the piss wet clothing all the time. And then when you get your half an hour of sleep at night, you have to change completely into dry kit to get into your sleeping bag so your sleeping bag doesn't get soaked and ruined, so it doesn't lose its insulative value. And then when you get up for sentry in 15 minutes from when you get your head down, you have to put all your wet kit back on and then sit there freezing your bollocks off for an hour before waking up the next poor bastard to do his hour and, and then so on and so forth. It makes for fairly tough soldiers because operating in that temperature range sucks. I've done time in Norway in the Arctic and I found that infinitely easier than the just slightly above zero wet type of thing.
Yeah, it just seems to chill you more to the core.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just, in the Arctic at least you can dress for it and you can dress up for it and your underlayer isn't piss wet and whatnot. But once you're wet, you're wet.
So where did they send you for training?
It was mostly done locally to where we were, which is in Plymouth, Devon in southern England. Or sorry, I tell lies. That's where I was stationed. It's Exeter. It's called Commando Training Center Royal Marines CTCRM. It's near a little village called Limpston, and it's just a big thing. There's like 15 at any given time. They put a new troop through every 2 weeks, so there's up to 15. Recruit troops with up to 60 people in them going through that place at the same time, plus all the training teams, plus everything else.
So it's busy. It's people always doing something there.
Oh yeah, massive. Yeah.
Well, I always wondered too about England. Like, it's such a small little landmass. So I always wondered, like, where do you go to do training there? Because you think of like the bases here, and they're out in the middle of nowhere, and like nobody could see you for miles. But there, I feel like you're you're not ever really far from a big city, or at least a city, and might even like, I don't know, where do they do like the Air Force training out there? And
it's all kind of very interesting the way they do things in the UK, especially if you've lived in another country before going there to train. One of our main ranges was actually, they fired out the backdrop was the sea. So we actually had to put people in boats to make sure that pleasure craft didn't come within
oh, really?
the end of the range. Yeah. And then on the moors, there's a lot of kind of big open, they call it moorland, close to these. That's why they situate them there as well. They try to situate them kind of like they do here, as close to what little wilderness Britain has. So. And we trained a lot in Wales and Scotland as well, because we were a mountain and Arctic warfare specialist unit. So we did a lot of hanging off hills. We did Wales, Scotland, and Norway a little bit as well.
So when you're in those units, and I'm not an expert by any means on the politics over there, but because you're saying you train with Wales and Scotland, but is Ireland a part of that, or they maintain their own thing?
Well, the United Kingdom is England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So that's the British forces are comprised of all four of those. So we did serve beside Northern Irish guys. Okay, that tended to be at the time anyway, politically, the Protestant Northern Irish guys. And we had a lot of colonials. We had a lot of Canadians. We had a lot of South Africans, New Zealanders, Australians,
like that were
serving in the Royal Marines.
In the Royal Marines. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Do you know why? Is it just
it had a good reputation. Has a good reputation as being a tough unit. So it did get a lot of interest from other countries.
Okay.
And again, Britain loves to stick its nose in things. So people that wanted action wanted to go into it.
I've heard of, is it the French Foreign Legion? Like a lot of people go to join that because I guess they'll just take anybody from anywhere. And I might be kind of generalizing that, but that's kind of the idea of them. So a lot of people go over there and try to get in. Is that kind of true of them?
I have a friend who was ex-Foreign Legion. He was British Army, and then he went over and joined the Foreign Legion. What he didn't do in the interim was get out of the army, so he ended up basically going AWOL and joining the Legion, and then he got arrested the next time he came back to the UK. So once he got that sorted out, he went back into the Legion and did a career with them. And then I ended up working with him when I went private in Iraq. He was my partner in Baghdad for 6 months. So I have a little experience with guys from the Legion.
So, maybe we'll get into that because we're going to talk about your private service there with the security. But what does training look like for someone in the Royal Marines? So what's your day-to-day?
You take everything from like map reading classes in a classroom to, learning how to use nuclear, chemical, and biological warfare suits to weapons training on all sorts of things, from belt-fed weapons to, the regular British assault rifle, which is not highly thought of by a lot of other people. They did redesign it while we were in there, and it made it slightly better. But yeah, a bit of pistol training, not a ton. A bit of hand-to-hand training, not a ton. Mm-hmm. Lots of physical exercise. It's probably 5-6 days a week. You're going for some sort of a run or some sort of long running is a big thing in the Royal Marines. The last commando test is a 30-mile run with 60 pounds of kit plus a rifle. So and it's you can't. That's not something you can just you have to work up to that. You can't just strap on a pack and go for a 30-mile run unless you want your body to give out, or unless you're a much tougher man than I am.
Well, so you get in, and you said you're not the lean running type body, but what weight did you get in there at? Do you know?
Yeah, it was probably about the same I am now, like 6'1" and 225 kind of thing.
Did you lean out quite a bit?
Yeah.
What you got down to?
I was like probably 205, 210 by the end of that.
Okay.
I don't get much smaller than that. Like that actually looks strangely skinny on me, but
yeah.
But yeah. but yeah, you do lose weight, and like the little skinnies end up gaining quite a bit of weight. The ones that made it, it's we had a lot of attrition in my course. It was particularly, I mean, attrition's high anyway, but mine was really bad to the point where we weren't able to pass out as a troop. We had to wait for the next troop behind us to pass out, and we passed it. We just got attached to them, so we had to wait 2 weeks for our pass out to occur.
And just so listeners kind of know, like a pass out is like the official graduating.
Your graduation, yeah, for sure. It's not what you do after a run, which that's also passing out. But I think we started with 64 and ended up with 9 at the end of it. So the attrition was pretty solid.
Man, how'd you find the instructors?
Not friendly.
No. Is it just drill all the time? They're just yelling the whole time? Yeah,
to a point, yeah. It's not like the U.S. Marines where everything's hoorah and like screaming and whatnot, but they're on your ass all the time, and they want high standards of everything, of cleanliness, of everything at all times. You are beasted, which is their term for corrective punishment.
Yeah,
if you mess up. So yeah, and we got beasted all the time, whether for sins real or imagined. Yeah.
Did you guys? Do you have anything like? Well, first of all, where'd you stay in? Was it just like a barracks?
Yeah, they were. I don't know. They were probably 60s era concrete and brick. Yeah, barrack rooms, 6 guys to a room. Sorry, and not terrible. Like I've stayed in much worse accommodation since then.
Yeah.
And like if you go to some of the satellite army barracks where you're sleeping, 60 guys to a room, or when I was in Northern Ireland, you're basically in a hole underground.
Yeah.
And there's 18 cots in a room that you wouldn't think you'd be able to fit one in, but it's horrible. But,
well, so you're at the training there, and you sleep in these rooms. It's got all these other guys. Are they doing inspections on you? Is that a thing worldwide?
Oh yeah.
So you got all your stuff kind of tossed, and they ruined your room?
Oh yeah, they had Dobie is the term they gave to washing, and they used to one of their things was to, if they found somebody's shit not folded properly in their locker, they'd haul out the entire troops stuff, throw it over a landing, pour Tide on it, and then pour water and all of that. So everybody's kit was ruined. So then your evenings for the next 2 or 3 were spent rewashing all of your clean stuff, refolding it, putting it back. And
well, I remember, and my closest example would be going to depot. So going through with the Mounties, and you had to have all your shoes lined up a certain way. They had to be tied up. They had to be laced up. And I remember we got our, I don't think it was our high browns yet. It was just I call them the parade boots. That might be the correct term, but it's just like the shiny black ones with the spur on it. And they're just for parades or like show, right? You don't wear them for work. But you had to polish them. And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was right after we got those, and we had an inspection that we didn't know about. So we're out all day. They come in, the corporals, and they check your whole room, and they're checking all the snaps on the jackets. There's inside your jacket, there's other zippers and snap. Everything's got to be done up at all times. So anyways, they didn't like a whole bunch of stuff in our trailer. So when we came back from the day, we found all these boots that like everybody had polished, and they were like perfect, like mirror finish, just whipped all the way down the hallway into a big pile. Gouges taken right out of the leather. So you had to come back and figure out, okay, now I got to spend, at least one of my 2 weekend days repolishing everything. And yeah, they did quite a few things. I was telling the last guy who was in here how they took some of the mattresses and threw them in the showers. So yeah, they come up with some creative ways to mess with you.
Oh, they had us once on the parade square. They did the same thing to us, but they made it. They screwed up all our boots at the same time by simply making us do push-ups in them.
Oh yeah. So there goes the toes.
Yep.
All right. So you're in this training. How long is that?
It's 8 months.
8 months. Okay, that was the 8 months.
I did break my leg in week 3, so mine was a little bit longer. I didn't end up passing. I got what's called back trooped. Now you can get back trooped for professional reasons. In other words, you suck at something, but they want to keep you, so you get some remedial training for a couple of weeks, and then you start with the next troop after you. And they'll do that like 1 or 2 times, and then they'll skid you.
Yeah.
Because they're not, I mean, they're just not, they've wasted a bunch of money on you at this point already, but they don't really care. They had very exacting standards, and if you didn't meet them, they wanted rid of you. It didn't matter how much desire you had or whatever else. If you sucked at something, they eventually chucked you out.
Okay.
Or if you got injured. And injuries were really common to the point where we had a remedial wing, like a remedial fitness wing for guys like me, that I had a broken leg. And, guys, we had all sorts of horrific injuries. And most of them you'd go into, it was called Hunter Company, and you'd go into Hunter Company and heal up. And then once a day, you'd be in the gym in front of, physical training instructors who specialized in rehab, basically.
Okay.
So I got to spend, I think it was 6 weeks getting rehab for a broken leg and in a cast, and doing hand bikes and, rope climbs with no legs and all that good stuff. And until trying to keep at least some strength and fitness in you for when you get back into it.
Well, 6 weeks is quite a bit of time to add on to already doing 8 months.
Yeah. It's adding a long time to what's already a hellish long time.
Since you're with the Royal Marines, like, is there any water component?
Oh, yeah. You don't just get wet from the rain. Like, we're in and out of the ocean pretty much all the time.
Really? What kind of training are you doing out there?
We did everything from like helicopter dunker drills, where they stick you in a fake helicopter chassis and they dump it into a pool, basically, under controlled circumstances, so that you learn how to get out of a downed helicopter. It's actually one of the requirements of serving at sea. Oh, wow. If you're serving out of helicopters, you have to be able to know how to get out of them if one of them goes down. But in training, we were just in and out of like landing craft and fast boats and stuff like this. You do a lot of like shore assaults. And cliff assaults is another thing we do a lot of, because we were kind of mountain Arctic warfare trained. A lot of what we do is like ship to boat to shore and then cliff, like a cliff insertion.
I'm already tired just hearing that. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of what you're leading up to learn, is how to get into places and how to survive once you're in there and stuff like this. And, how to move quietly and stuff like this. And, how to make sure that your magazine isn't welded together with salt, as I found out one time after I cleaned my weapon religiously, and we went on a mock assault, and then me, along with everyone else in my squad, ended up with single shot weapons because we hadn't cleaned all the magazines out, and all the bolts were stuck together.
Oh, man.
And then the corrective punishment started.
Well, that's the place to learn, right?
Yeah.
That's where you want to make those mistakes.
Better to learn it there than in battle, for sure, yeah.
So you get through your 8 months, and then, what happens toward the end of that? Is there like a staffing process, or they put you in some other further unit?
You do it in phases. Like the initial up to, I think it's the first 4, it's been a long time, but like the first 14 weeks is just kind of basic, what your regular Army guy would get. Basic training, how to march, or how to set up your bivvy, how to live in the bush, how to navigate, all of that stuff. Then we get into like the commando phase, where they just make things a hell of a lot harder. There's a lot more like high obstacle course type work done. A lot of rope climbing was a huge thing among the Marines, is rope climbing with all your kit on. And it culminates in 4 commando tests: a 9-mile speed march, which is like 9 miles in 90 minutes with just your belt kit and a rifle. So like probably 35 pounds.
Yeah.
Done like a lot of the Royal Marine stuff is done. Once you're loaded, you walk up the hills, but the flats and the downhills are ran. And you have to do everything in step too. This isn't just a free range run. So there's the 9-miler, and then there's the Tarzan Assault Course, which is a bunch of just high wire obstacles well off the ground, where you slide down this long, they call it the death slide. You start off at about 50 or 60 feet off the ground and slide diagonally down a rope, and then you start running, climbing these poles, and then sliding across cables on your hands, and then and your hands and arms and stuff like this, and jumping through cargo nets and climbing over cargo nets and all of that stuff. So you have to do that in under 10 minutes or 11 minutes. I can't remember exactly. Then there was the one I hated the most, which was the endurance course, which is 3 miles of water-filled tunnels that you get to crawl through and run in between. And then a 4-mile run back to camp, and then you have to put 10 shots on a figure-8 target at a certain distance with no misses.
That sounds hard.
Was horrible.
It's not like when we practice shooting here and they're like, do 15 jumping jacks and get your heart rate up. You're like, no, that sounds like getting your heart rate up.
This is like 72 minutes of hell, and then a shooting test immediately after this when you're breathing out your backside. And then day 4 is the 30-miler, which is just a long, horrible run with a lot of weight on you.
Yeah, well, how much time do you get to do that?
That's 8 hours. 8 hours for other ranks, 7 hours for officers. We did ours in just over 7. They won't let us do it under 7 because you're not supposed to beat the officers.
Why do they get a less time?
They
just carry less?
Theoretically, no. Well, probably. No, theoretically, it's to foster, appreciation from the men. That the officers managed to do this, but they did it in even less time than us. Like, look how good they are.
So where do you go from training? So you finish that up, and then
you put into you get a bunch of choices, and then you put your first 7 choices down of what unit you want to go to, and then here's your first 1 to 7 of which trade or specialist qualification you want to go to. And I really just wanted to go into a commando unit and just be a regular gravel bellied bloody infantryman. I had no desire to go and learn any weird, wonderful, special tricks. I didn't want to become a chef. I didn't want to become a signaler.
Yeah.
No desire. They did tell us if you put chef anywhere other than 7th, that you would become a chef. Because nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to 4-2 Commando as just a general duties guy.
Okay. So what do you do there? And when you show up, what does the showing up there look like?
It's kind of it's regular military unit. Basically, you show up and you do some sort of training every day, or some physical training in the morning, and then you go to lectures, and then you go, or they take you off on exercises to somewhere else. You can go to Wales for a week, and we were deployed. We ended up going to the States first, actually, when I first got to 4-2, to take couple of weeks of desert training in 29 Palms, and then we had a couple of weeks of mountain training, also in California. I can never remember if it's Bridgeport or Bridgewater. It's their mountain Arctic warfare place in Northern California, and it's hilarious going from desert, and within one day you're in bloody, almost high Arctic type, walking up mountains.
So,
well, not high Arctic, but I mean, high altitude, sorry.
What'd you find, did you have, I guess you had a lot of interactions with the U.S. troops. So you find any major differences between them and how you guys did things, or different leadership styles?
The Americans are very funny in that, you get a medal for showing up first in the food queue. They get medals for everything. They also get ranks for everything. They have, for our 5 or 6 non-commissioned ranks, they've got bloody 9 of them. So there's guys with 7, 8 sets of stripes, and you're like, what are you? I know you're a sergeant of some sort, but it's, what kind of sergeant are you? But, and they don't trust their very junior soldiers to, or at least it seemed to me anyway, in the U.S. Marines. that they don't really trust their junior guys with complicated things. You will never see a private calling in mortar fire because they're not taught how to do it.
Mm.
And their radio procedure is friggin' abysmal. And but at the lower levels, they tend to learn more things as they get ranks and get experience. Whereas we're taught you drink out of the fire hose when you're in commando training. They just shove everything down your throat and you have to swallow it.
That's one thing that I've heard from talking to a few other people was that I guess like the Canadian military would be more similar to the British one in that you're almost taught to be a generalist.
Yeah.
But you're specialized in a lot of things. Maybe generalist isn't the greatest term, but you specialize in a number of things and you're always learning the rank above you to do their job. Whereas the American military is very like you do this one thing and that's your job.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting because they're
so much bigger too, though. I assume it's because of their numbers that they have to do the way they do. The other thing is a lot of the U.S. Marines I worked with were really, really, really lovely guys, like really nice people, but they were not well educated. Like they were people from, like really buttfuck small towns or, super hick or super, low income backgrounds. And you really got the feeling that very few of them had actually finished high school and whatnot. It was, they were really nice, but they were not bright.
Well, I wonder what their numbers, the geographic region that makes up the majority of their numbers. Because I've heard most of it is like your central Midwest. So it's like the poorer states, right? It's not people flocking from California or New York necessarily. So, but can you tell me, like, let's maybe get into some of your deployments that you went on? Because you said you've been in Ireland, you've been in Iraq. So you're there, you finish your training. Where do you kind of go? Like, what's one of your first places that you head off to?
From training, sorry?
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed a question.
Oh, just from training, like where's one of the first places you kind of went to?
Actually deployed?
Yeah.
Well, we ended up coming back from the US where we'd done like Arctic stuff and mountain stuff mountain stuff and desert stuff. No foreshadowing there. Then we went to Ireland for 6 months. So we ended up you spend half your time in a guard tower in the country, which has got like a huge CCTV camera on it. And you just do observations of the surrounding area from this tower. And then the other half is spent in my case, was spent in a small village called Crossmaglen in South Armagh, which is known in Northern Ireland as bandit country because it's where a lot of the fairly senior IRA guys hung out and lived.
So what exactly are you there to do? Like, what's the mission?
Kind of, without going too deeply into it, to like observe the local players to see who's who in the zoo and what they're doing and report on it. It's kind of part of an intelligence picture, essentially.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. Like, you're mainly there in an intelligence capacity.
Yeah, and just kind of, it's a low level, and we're there to support police, funnily enough. We did a lot. The police in Cross particularly don't go out without a military escort.
Oh, really?
At all. And they don't go out in vehicles either. This is another thing the Brits learned in Ireland pretty quickly, is you don't drive because cars blow up. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they stopped doing it. In that area, you could move by helicopter or on foot. So that's all we did.
So 10 is obviously a huge conflict. It's still ongoing. And you're there as like a security apparatus for the police, escorts, helping them throughout the day, but also a major intel component to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
and just a presence as well. Like it's, you're there to walk around the town and be seen by these players and whatnot so that they know there's people there watching them. They're well aware of it.
Did you have any kind of confrontations between?
Nothing serious. It was winding down by the time we got there. We had some minor issues. I had a guy try to run me over with a car. That was, but it turned out he was a drunk driver, and I ended up spike belting him. But it's one of the first kind of things where you're in a shoot or no shoot situation. You know, I initially did have my rifle leveled at this guy's windshield, and I was about to shoot the guy, and I'm like, the political climate at the time, that's one of those things that if this ends up not being justified, not only am I in jail for a really long time, but I've just started a fucking war back up again, single-handedly. So, I made the quick decision to jump into a ditch and grab the spike belt out of the top of my backpack and throw it across the street. Managed to get the cord pulled back like it was one of the old Stinger types, and managed to catch all 4 tires. So,
wow,
got a result there from a ditch.
So, for most of your time there, what do you have any other things that kind of come up, or is it pretty peaceful time as it's winding down?
It was pretty peaceful. We only lost one guy that tour, and that's the first time there'd been a bloodless tour of that part of Northern Ireland since, there hadn't been one.
Yeah.
Since kind of like the early 70s. Okay. So it was, we kind of really were catching the tail end of it. We unfortunately lost one young lad to suicide, but nothing to action.
So where do you go from Ireland?
Came back to Britain, then you get a bit of leave. I think you get 6 or 7 weeks after a 6-month deployment. It's pretty good. So you come back really out of shape and have to suffer all over again. And then it's after that we were just gearing up to go to the. Actually, I'm going to back up here. This is what happens when shit was 20 some years ago. It's the memory doesn't serve well. I'm going to rewind actually to just before. Before Ireland, actually, because September 11th was actually quite pivotal in this. Like that it was 2001, and we were due to be flying out to like I said, we'd gone to the United States. Well, that was on the eve of that day.
Okay.
So we got delayed basically leaving. Yeah. And then when we did leave, it was we got stuck at the airport for like a couple of days, and then we were the first flight out. And that it really set the tone for like what you're doing, because you're going for desert training and you're going for, mountain training, and all of a sudden this has happened, and it's strongly thought to be, Al-Qaeda or something like this. So you're strongly thinking, I'm taking desert training and this just happened, but I was already scheduled for desert training when this happened. So I mean, that was one of those things where you start to really like, this isn't just training for training's sake. This is,
you're in it now.
Yeah, I think I know where we're going next after our scheduled Ireland deployment. And then sure enough, we come back from Ireland, get our leave, and then we're gearing up to go to Iraq.
Would you say that's like one of the first times that you thought that like, this is serious. Now this, like, we're going to war essentially, or some form of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was even just before all of that happened in early 2001, the Royal Marines had done a tour in Afghanistan, where Afghanistan really wasn't a thing there. But they had sent one of the commando units, I can't remember which, I think it was 40, had done a tour in, I think it was 2001 or 2000, when I was first getting in anyway. So we'd actually been in the desert and whatnot, kind of previous to when it was in the public consciousness at that point. But then, 2003 rolled around and we were involved. My unit was involved in the initial invasion, and so was 40 Commando. So like 2/3 of the Royal Marines were involved in some way, shape, or form in the invasion of Iraq. So where you were the Brits the kind of the spearhead, the main force there, or were you mixed in with Americans or other people? We were where we were in the south, we were the only ones. The way they kind of worked it is the Brits took the south and the Americans took the central.
Okay.
There was Americans in Amkazar, which is a small city we landed up in after the initial invasion had us landing in the Al-Faw Peninsula, which is like an oil gathering area in the south of Iraq. Iraq's got an incredibly small coastline there, and it's basically all just gas and oil plants for where all of the oil from the country gets gathered and then sent to pipeline and then out to sea. And it's got a tiny little frontage, so it's very, very strategically important, both to them and to anybody who wants the oil. So that's the first thing we took, of course. So yeah, 4-2 Commando took that. 40 Commando took the actual tip of the peninsula. 4-2 Commando, my unit, we did the northern cutoff, so we basically made sure nothing could get down to them. And we went in, it was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Where we were. Yeah, we ended up firing some anti-tank weapons at a scout car, basically. Somebody that's been sent to, gather information.
Yeah.
Didn't know we were there, and all of a sudden got lit up by a bunch of Milan missiles. So, yeah. Didn't hit him, by the way.
No?
Yeah, so some of the anti-aircraft guys, we had our own in-house anti-aircraft troop, and so their big joke was if it flies, it dies. If it drives, it survives.
I guess they have an excuse.
What?
So when you land there and you're kind of going into that, what's your mindset as you're flying in, and it's like, okay, in the next day or two, I'm going to be in this. So what are you kind of thinking around that time?
I think I was nervous, certainly. Excited as well. Like you spent all this time training for this, and you're actually getting to go to a real war. Like it's, a lot of people spend their entire military careers, sometimes quite long military careers, without ever getting to see any action. And I was just happy to not be one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was quite excited. And I mean, we got to see some pretty cool things. Like we were in an RAF Puma helicopter, and we were flying from Kuwait over the border into Iraq in the early hours of the morning. And there was as we passed the border's lined up with a bunch of American tanks. And there's a bunch of American servicemen standing on the tanks saluting us as we went over, which was definitely one of the high points of my military career, just from the kind of, wow, look at this.
Yeah. It's, I think it would be interesting to see just like the camaraderie extends beyond borders, beyond the service, but you're all there for, you have a similar goal, but we're all in this together. And yeah, that would be quite a feeling to see.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was, and you know what, the Americans definitely the people we worked with the most, and I didn't ever see any acrimony between the Americans and the Brits. Mm-hmm. Like never.
Yeah.
Not a single example of it. So
it's funny too, because you think of the history between Britain and America, and that's not super long ago, a couple hundred years. And then you are in the Middle East where, they've been going at it for thousands of years. And, not trying to make light of their situation, but, you would think at some point somebody would kind of be like, okay, we've been doing this for how long now? Like maybe we're going to try and work together. I don't want to say get over it because that's not a right term, but, we're going to work together. But America has a war with Britain, which is still very relevant in a lot of people's minds nowadays. And yet they're just kind of moved on and are working together now. Yeah. So it's interesting to see the dynamic between nations and all these regions. These are people that are like their families are from just across the border, but then now they're fighting the people across the border, and it's what a hard place to be in, especially in that part of the world.
I mean, both of the conflicts that I was in, like Ireland and Iraq, both were characterized by the internal populations having their own divisions. Ireland between the Protestants and Catholics, and then, in Iraq at the time, it was between the Sunnis and the Shias.
Mm-hmm.
Like the numerically small ruling class over the, numerically large poor class.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting from that standpoint as well. Like, you don't know whether you're dealing with a Sunni or a Shia. You don't know what their political things are, and even the combatants. Like when we got further up north, we went from from the Alfau Peninsula to a small village called Kazar. And then from there, we ended up in Basra, which is like the largest southern city. And we were part of the Battle of Basra. Mm. We were kind of the infantry support for, I think it was the Royal Irish Regiment, which are heavy tanks. So our Challenger 2, these big, massive main battle tanks. And it was reputed to have been the biggest tank battle for the Brits since World War II.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was, they were fighting. I mean, they had 120 mil smoothbore cannons with depleted uranium rounds, which looked like a bloody great lawn dart. Mm. And the tanks they're fighting against are predominantly T-62s, which are Russian tanks designed in 1962, and they don't have the same armament. Their armament's like a 110 or a 100 mil.
And this is what Al-Qaeda's driving around.
Yeah, and they're mostly buried hull down because they know they're not going to survive in a one-on-one battle, so they bury them hull down so only the turret is sticking out. But our guys just picked them off without ever taking a loss because the difference in range and accuracy was massive. So it was a very, very uneven battle, really.
So when you're in there, you're out on foot.
Yeah.
And what is it like being in the middle of that?
It's interesting. You don't see it that much. We kind of you go in after the tank, and we weren't on foot actually. We were in BV206s. Our particular unit was because we didn't have enough real vehicles.
So what are those?
They're like a double cabbed over snow vehicle. They were originally designed as an Arctic snow wagon, basically.
Oh,
and we ended up taking a bunch of them to the desert. They were absolute death traps, but. The SOP on any sort of contact was to bail out of them and fight on foot. Mm-hmm. Like they were there to get you from point A to point B. You definitely didn't try fighting out of them.
It's like driving a golf cart around.
Not far off it, yeah. Just a really big one, yeah.
So what's it like being in the middle of one of these battles?
It's chaotic, but again, we didn't see that much of it.
Yeah.
You come in behind them, you sweep them behind them, and you're basically there just to make sure that once they've taken the ground, that you hold it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you don't actually sit there and listen to the cannons roaring, and you kind of come around and sweep up behind. Mm-hmm. And then we got into Basra itself, and and then you dig in, and then we ended up pretty quickly after getting into into one of Saddam's palaces. And that's where we ended up kind of holding up for the remainder of our time in Basra. And then from there, we just did daily patrols used it as a base, and then we just did daily patrols out.
So you were actually walking around inside the palace?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or one of them?
Yeah.
So were you sitting on like a pile of gold? Did you get any pictures in there?
No. Well, I got pictures, certainly. There was a picture of me that ended up in the Sunday Times many years after the conflict, with 4 hooded prisoners and me holding a rifle behind them, and above an article that was talking about the mistreatment of prisoners.
And they used your photo.
They used the photo of me, yeah.
Did you get in any trouble for that? Like, anybody come after you and say, what are you doing? And you're like, no.
Not at all. I was back in Canada by the time that got released, because one of my mates that I'd served with actually sent me the whole paper by mail to my address in Canada, and and for sure there's me, and it's 100% me just sitting there with a rifle, and there's 4 hooded detainees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is your face visible then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
It'd be quite the story.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go look this up.
Yeah. I'll see if I can find you the picture, but
Well, what do you kind of remember about, like, so you're in there and you're with all these people. Are you guys, do you get a lot of downtime? Like, what's the day to day when you're
When
now
you're
taking this land?
once you're in, yeah, you kind of rest up. When you're not actually moving from point A to point B, you can rest up, clean weapons, administer yourself, eat, sleep, do anything you need to do. You're kind of treated like an adult in these situations. You're expected to know what to do. You're expected to know what needs to be done. You're expected to know when you've got your next briefing for your next patrol. You are treated like an adult as long as you act like one.
Do you get, I imagine you get to know all these guys pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're sharing a lot of stories and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So do you come out of that is there people you still talk to this day?
Not a ton. Probably because I moved countries again after that, you lose touch over time. I kept Facebook basically for that sole reason, because it's one of the few easy mediums to talk to somebody back home with.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time change and all sorts of stuff, but and unfortunately, my best friend in the Corps passed away a couple of years ago. Yeah, and so I kind of I obviously lost touch with him, but yeah, over the years, I've kind of just lost touch with people.
Yeah. What you got any good memories from, like, when you were in there though?
Oh yeah, loads. Yeah, lots of stupid ones as well. But
what do you guys kind of when you wrap up in this push through and you do this battle that you were saying, the tanks roll in, you take the palace, do you get to go out and interact with the locals at all?
Yeah, we did. We did a few arrest ops on, like, once we identified who the Ba'athist leaders in the area were, we did arrest ops where we'd go out and kick doors in at 3 a.m. and then drag people out of their beds and stuff like this. And it was, it was interesting because you practice that sort of thing a lot, but it's when you actually do it on the day, it's always so much more chaotic than it is in practice.
We know that from just even police operations. You could plan all day.
Yeah.
2 seconds into it, it's going to hell.
No plan ever survives first contact with the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did those end up in any kind of skirmishes or anything, or most of those turned out all right?
Couple of physical, scuffles, but no, we went in with such kind of overwhelming force and whatnot that we had a lot of people, even as we were going into, like, Kazar, we had people surrender to us. We had, like, soldiers surrender to us, but never in uniform. They shed their uniforms and got civvies on so that they wouldn't automatically. They perceived that they were just going to get shot on sight if they were seen with it. So we'd find, we started to find weapons caches in schools. So then we started targeting schools because they were all closed down, no kids in them. But schools over there all have kind of like live-in caretakers. So we'd find caretakers in the schools, which was normal. But it's not normal to have 4 military-aged males as the caretaker. Normally it was a family, like with a grandfather, the parents, and then, some little ones. That'd be more the normal caretaker family. We were starting to find military-aged males, and then when we'd search the freezer, we'd find a bunch of military uniforms at the bottom of the freezer, and then we'd search the gymnasium. In one case, we're like kind of pushing on the ceiling tiles, and all of a sudden an RPG falls down, and then a mortar. And you're like, and then, oh God, this is a well-hidden weapons cache. And these guys are soldiers. They're just pretending not to be.
Pretending, yeah.
So we did a lot of prisoner handling. We had a lot of people surrender to us, but we didn't get a lot of people shooting at us. Some of 40 Commando got lit up a little bit in the south, and another troop in 4-2 got some small arms engagement, including one fairly funny one when we were taking over the Saddam's palace, because that was held. Somebody apparently, I don't know if this is urban legend or real, but apparently somebody fired an RPG at one of the Pinzgauers, which is like a little Land Rover type thing. And it hit one of the Bergens, which is a backpack, and didn't go off.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's just stuck in his.
That'd be a pucker moment.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. How do I get as far away from this thing without dropping it on the ground?
Oh no, you get out of the vehicle and you get away from it. That's unexploded ordnance. You don't mess with that shit. You call in the engineers and somebody blows it up.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So was after that, and because we don't have a ton of time left with you, but I wanted to get into some of the private work you did, because you said you left the military, and then you went back to Iraq for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
it's 18 months, but it was up. You did 2 months in, and then got 1 month out.
So who do you go back there with? I'm always curious about this. Guys come out of the military and then they go off on like private contractor stuff. So what kind of group are you working with, and what type of work is it?
I worked for a company called Diligence Middle East, which I think are now called Diligence LLC. They still exist. I think they're more into big corporate stuff now, but at the time, Diligence Middle East was, at least the Iraq wing was run by an ex-SBS Special Boat Service, kind of like Britain's version of the Navy SEALs guy. And he predominantly, because they're out of commander units, predominantly hired ex-Royal Marines. So we had one para, but we picked on him.
There's always an outsider. So what type of work is that?
Close protection, essentially.
Okay.
You one-on-one protection for clients moving to and from meetings. In this case, I first worked for a group called the International Republican Institute. They're an NGO, non-government organization, with an obvious, as the name suggests, a kind of Republican take on politics.
Yeah.
So they were there basically to school American-friendly politicians. So when we were there, close protection, we just made sure they got around Baghdad in vehicles as quietly and safely as we could possibly make it.
Do you ever find, do you find that job maybe even scarier because you don't have an army behind you? So if you get into
There's
something...
There's a real lack of air support.
Yeah.
Or even any support. Yeah.
Right? Who's going to back you up?
You've got a QRF of like a quick reaction force of 2 other Land Rovers,
Wow.
And a lot of just small arms. I think the biggest thing we had out there was like belt-fed stuff like an RPK. But
so did most of that went kind of quietly?
We were lucky because the way the British Special Forces have operated for years, and being run by one of them, we did everything covertly. Mm-hmm. Local cars, we'd put sunshades in the back. We had SF-style body armor and carriers, but we put like a local shirt over the top of it just to break the silhouette and the outline. So when people look into a car, all they see is just a big guy. They don't see the body armor. They don't see the weapon. Mm-hmm. You wear a baseball cap and sunglasses and kind of somewhat, disguise that you're not local. And then we always had a local driver in the front and a local close protection guy. So the front, to look at that car from front, you'd see blacked out windows in the back, which is normal in the Middle East. Yeah. And you'd see 2 local faces in the front. So for the most part, our vehicle moves went incredibly smoothly, except for accidents. Mm-hmm. The driving over there is abysmal. So you get into accidents pretty frequently. And then we had a couple of instances where people got out with pistols in their waistbands thinking they were going to intimidate us into either paying them for the accident or at least pretending the accident didn't happen. And then they got the shock of their life when they see my big ugly mug in the back seat when they go to stick their head in the driver and I've got an AK pointed at their head. Yeah. They tend to, you say fuck off and off they fuck. But
and I would think too, for you, it's like, is this person did they hit me on purpose?
And that's now, the other thing. Yeah.
Now it's like, it's getting crazy.
Well, I mean, as they're coming up to you, the back car always has the 2 guys basically sitting facing backwards the whole time. It's really uncomfortable. And they also have the heaviest weapons which in this case were just East German AKs. It was a while before we started to get better weapons. Like when we were first over there, we had a collection of AKs and MP5s, which are a beautiful weapon. It's a pistol round though. It's not very useful for operating out of cars. Mm-hmm. So it's the whole time they're coming up to you, you've got a gun on them. they can't see it, but you're pointing at them and you're like, safety's off, and because you don't know when that guy's going to reach for something. I mean, it's the same stuff we deal with in policing, to be fair.
Yeah.
You never know what you're getting into.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've poked a head in the car or looked around and, that person's sitting there with a rifle on their lap.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's happened to me. It's happened to several people I know. So, yeah, not far off.
Yeah.
Well, would you say, kind of looking back, has your reasons for being involved with, like, now you're with the police, you did this time, even in the private sector, but it's all kind of in service. Would you say your reasons for doing this have changed at all?
I would say not really, actually. I get to the point where, like, I tried to go back to school when I left the private security stuff and tried an engineering degree, failed it bloody miserably, and I hated my life so much at that point. I really was not great in school, and it was just trying it too late in life, like I do with everything. So I went into provincial corrections for 6 years. And then, like, after that, because I was just comfortable in a uniform, and my brother worked in corrections, and it just seemed an easy way of getting a job that I was going to be fairly good at. I really actually enjoyed it. And then I just wanted to go the extra step of, because, it seems the next logical steps from corrections is policing, because you're not just housing the criminals, you're actually going out and catching them.
Yeah.
But my one regret on that is I wish I'd started a lot younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine take a toll after some point,
Cool.
especially you're doing 30 milers.
Yeah. My knees are, I have the body of a 49-year-old held up by the knees of a 99-year-old. So,
yeah. Well, and what would you kind of say for people looking to get into military or police service? Would you kind of have any general advice, like maybe do's or don'ts when it comes to what you're getting yourself into and the reasons why, like making sure that you are here for the right reasons, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. I have two thoughts on that. One, do it younger.
Mm-hmm.
And two, like, do some preparation. Like, especially the Royal Marines was tough, but anything like that, the more physically fit and mentally fit you are when you go into it, the better off you're going to fare when you get through the training and stuff like this, because you're going to get injuries, you're going to get knocked back, you're going to feel like a failure at some point, you're going to fuck something up, so those are things you can't always affect. The things you can affect are your fitness going in and stuff like that. Like, I would say go in younger and go in prepared.
Yeah. And what do you think about nowadays? Like, there's the military here. I don't know about in Britain, but the military here and in the U.S. Then you just look at all the police service; they're all having a hell of a time recruiting people. Any kind of thoughts around that? Like, why that might be the case?
Lack of deployments always kills armies.
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything, nobody wants to go. It's not, people don't join the military to sit in a barracks. People join the military to go do cool things overseas. And I don't necessarily mean, like, war is cool. I'm not trying to glorify that, but I don't think anybody joins the military for those reasons. So when you're not going overseas and you're not doing anything, your recruiting is going to suffer.
Well, this is one thing that I thought about when it comes to policing is, are we trying to attract the right people? And sort of on that deployment side of things where, like for police, it's not to say we're going out and we have to be kind of shit starters and be confrontational with people or anything. But I think a lot of the recruiting and the strategies behind it, like from what we see now, everything is just a smiling face on a poster, wear your nice tie and you're all squared away and you look pretty and that's great. But people that want to do this type of work will be attracted by the action. And maybe we're trying to attract the wrong people and doing things that are off-putting to the ones that would be most likely to be motivated to do this type of work. And what I find funny is like, so a lot of the conversations I've had with people on this podcast is, like policing's changing. Maybe some of the functions are, but end of the day, patrol work is the bread and butter of this. That won't change. You still need people to go be adult babysitters, and you need to attract people that are motivated, that like doing physical work, that want to be out there in the field, and that have some fortitude, that have some gusto. Like, otherwise, we're just going to slowly kind of die off, and we can't be a bunch of people sitting inside, not on this job, not in the military. So kind of my thoughts around that. But so in the end, though, service kind of where you've been for most of your career, it's been a good time.
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't change. I mean, I'd change the order I did things in, certainly. And I would have got into things younger had I, if I could go back and do it again, I would do it again. I probably would have skipped the oil field working, and gone into the Marines as a 17 or 18-year-old, or gone and got a degree and then gone in as a 23-year-old officer,
So money isn't everything.
Oh,
it's about the experiences, the camaraderie, being with some good people, making some good memories, right?
Yeah, I've progressively, other than maybe the private security, which actually paid pretty well, but other than that one blip, I think as I get older, I get into jobs that pay less and less as I get older.
Yeah. No, makes sense. So that kind of comes to the end of our time, but is there anything else that you think we didn't cover that you'd like to cover, or maybe we missed something?
No, I think we're pretty good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks for the time today. So
thanks very much for having me.